Hello, Justin Giddings here, the Kickstarter guy, and today we're going to talk about one of the most requested issues that pop up, which is Kickstarter versus Indiegogo versus Seed&Spark. Which platform is the best for a filmmaker wanting to get their film or project or web series or book or album, whatever, funded, creative project funded? So, it's a pretty complicated answer, actually. It's not just like, well, Kickstarter's the best or Indiegogo's the best or whatever like that. So I really want to break down. So for the next 3 days, today, tomorrow, and the next day, I'm going to go over each of those three platforms in depth with their pros and cons so that at the end you have a pretty robust insight on which platform to choose. This is a small part of my training, maybe 45 minutes or so in terms of my big course and coaching and all that kind of thing. So I'm not going to go through every single little nitpicky detail here, but this should definitely give you enough to kind of get you on the right path of which platform you want to use. All right, so let's break down Kickstarter. Here's an interesting thing. I'm called the Kickstarter guy, but that was actually a nickname I picked up when people were emailing me a lot. It was like, hey, I want some help. I heard you're the Kickstarter guy. I actually raised my funds on Indiegogo, my first $100,000 for my projects. And then Seed&Spark is actually my number one favorite platform. Kickstarter is a very, very, very close second. They kind of, you could even say they're kind of at the same level. So that being said, let's start with Kickstarter though, because it is the brand name. It is the Google of crowdfunding, right? You're gonna go kickstart a film or kickstart a series or project or book or music album, whatever. I've done circuses actually too, so you're gonna kickstart your circus. Okay, so let's talk about a brief overview. What is Kickstarter? Kickstarter is a rewards-based crowdfunding platform, which means there is no equity. You're giving away perks or rewards in exchange for certain pledge levels. It is an all or nothing funding model, which means you must reach 100% of your funding in order to get any of the money. 98% won't cut it. The platform fees are about 5%. The merchant fees, which are like the card, like what it costs for Visa to run credit cards kind of thing, is usually 2.5% to 3%. So you're looking at about roughly 8% costs. And it's definitely the biggest platform, having raised several $billion. I want to say $4 or $5 billion at this point. I mean, it's big, it's huge, it's the number one. So let's talk about the pros. So the first pro is that it is number one. It has a ton of brand awareness. Again, it's the Google. Everybody knows, oh, you're going to go kickstart a thing. That definitely increases traffic, increases some legitimacy of your project. I will say though, a lot of people will say, okay, well, I'll do Kickstarter though because it'll generate a lot of this traffic that I need to get. If you watched module one, not module one, sorry, that's in my training. I think it's day 2 or 3 where I talk about the first core component and needing big numbers and marketing. Go watch that video if you haven't. So it's not so much that the platform itself is going to generate any of that traffic. In fact, usually I see anywhere from 3 to 5% of the amount you raise is going to come from a specific platform. That being said, it's easy to talk about. People, your great grandma might actually know about Kickstarter, whereas Seed&Spark, Indiegogo, the name's not going to ring a bell as much. Another pro is that they have excellent customer service. Liz and Elise run the, I'm going to say Liz Mo and Elise McCabe. I think I have those numbers right. Liz and Elise for sure. They run the film department, the film category, which is where like web series, shorts, and all that kind of stuff will kind of go through at Kickstarter, and they're amazing. You can get them on an email. They will give you personalized feedback. They will schedule phone calls with you. Again, they got to prioritize campaigns and that kind of stuff, but they're generally easy to get a hold of and get feedback from. And they're just wonderful people to work with, and they want you to be successful. I mean, obviously there's the financial incentive of their platform raising money, but they're also just good people, and they're filmmakers themselves, and they like want to see you do this thing. All right, so Kickstarter also has the highest platform success with larger numbers. Like 40, 50K, Kickstarter really starts to sort of take the lead on the success rates. Seed&Spark has an insanely high success rate for projects in that $10,000 to $20,000 range, which is where most of film campaigns are kind of living. Kickstarter, but really the thing about success rates that I do want to say is that like Kickstarter, Seed&Spark, Indiegogo, those are the landing pages in your marketing. So you got to do all the marketing over here, and then it's got to go to the landing page. And that doesn't matter as much as the marketing, where they land. It matters, and it's important, but it's not like the defining factor. Your success rate is unlikely to be connected to the platform you choose, but rather to the actions you take beforehand. Just in general, Kickstarter is kind of a rite of passage for a lot of filmmakers. A lot of projects are getting kickstarted, and it's kind of having gone through that seems to carry some indie street cred in the indie filmmaking world. Now, the biggest pro is its all or nothing model. Now, this is the thing that tends to scare most filmmakers away from it. Oh my gosh, if I don't get all my money, I'm not going to have anything. Then what am I going to do? Well, first off, there's some stuff there to be like, well, what do you actually need? Because if you say you need 30,000 and then you get 20,000, why would your backers ever expect that you're going to be able to deliver on the expectations and the promise of what you gave at 30,000, right? So this is why, believe it or not, all or nothing funding models have a much, much, much higher chance of success, and you also raise a whole lot more money. Indiegogo has dismal success rates for film. I think it starts like in that 10 to 20K range. I think it's like 17%, 15% success rate. Really, 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 really low. And it's because of this keep what you raise model. People don't take that seriously. Right? So when you have an all or nothing funding model and you tell your backers, yo, if I get X amount and no less, but if I get X amount, I'm going to make this thing that I'm telling you and promising you and engaging you about and being passionate about and working on all this kind of stuff. People take that more seriously than like, yeah, hey, if we get it, great. If not, I don't know, we'll throw something together for you, right? So this, I really strongly encourage any filmmakers watching this that you guys really start shifting the story in your head. People like to talk about Indiegogo a lot. I've even seen a couple of gurus here and there talk about Indiegogo as being, hey, it's great that you can keep money if you don't raise it all. No, man, like that, it really, really undercuts the credibility of the campaign, and the numbers speak for themselves. I've raised several $1,000,000 on, well, I guess a couple $1,000,000 at Kickstarter, a couple $1,000,000 on Seed&Spark, and the least amount on Indiegogo for this reason. Partially because I steer people away from that, but the reason I steer people away from that is because my clients tend to have the hardest time with Indiegogo. All right, so let's talk about cons. By the way, Indiegogo is a flexible funding model. That's why I keep referencing that. They're the big ones that like, hey, you get to keep what you raise. All right, so let's talk about the cons of Kickstarter. The big one for me, actually, is that they have poor analytics and tracking. They don't allow integration of what are called Facebook pixels, which is a little piece of data that you can connect to your Facebook account so you can really sort of measure and track ads from Facebook. And Facebook is the biggest source of all traffic for most campaigns. Definitely paid Facebook ads are the least expensive and easiest to set up and use. And so the fact that there's like no way to use that integration is really challenging. Another thing is that it's really nearly impossible to personally engage backers. When somebody pledges on Kickstarter, you don't get their contact information of any kind, and you're only going to know their name if their Kickstarter handle, their like username, is their name. So if it's Starlord69 or something like that, you're not going to have any way to reach out to them except as a message through the crowdfunding platform, which is great. Like, always send a thank you. And if all you can do is send a thank you through the platform, that's fine. The benefit of the other two platforms, though, is that you get their contact information and you can send them a personalized email directly to that person. Even if you know the person on a Kickstarter campaign, you're only, well, I mean, I guess you can look up their email in your own contacts or something like that. But let's say you've got like the first and last name of somebody on Kickstarter, and so okay, great, I'll send them an actual email. You're going to send it through the platform system, and it's going to go to their like their promotions folder or their spam folder or something like that, because it's coming from this big like Kickstarter corporate email server thing, right? Not your personal email. So the big challenge with that is that retention is essential, right? So you can't really reach out to people personally, and yet you need to have a really as personal relationship as possible with your Kickstarter backers, because you have to retain them. They can withdraw their pledge, they can decrease their pledge, they can increase their pledge if you need them to, but they're not going to do it if you've had no connection with them and not engage them as much as possible. Chargebacks can happen where people's cards just like don't go through because their expiration on the card ended midway through, or they had insufficient funds by the time the thing happened. So there's like all these reasons reasons where you need to kind of have a personal connection to them in case something goes down. You need to reach out to them and email them and all that kind of stuff. But you're somewhat hampered by the fact that you have no actual direct contact information. And if the campaign is unsuccessful, you'll never have their direct contact information. So you can't reach out to them and see about gearing up for another one because maybe you learned a really whatever, right? So, and I mentioned chargebacks. So chargebacks are, like I said, when a card doesn't go through by the time they've hit that goal, that number, and the campaign is ended. Kickstarter gives them a window to fix that. They reach out to them also. You will have their contact information because it'll be a successful campaign, and so you will be able to reach out to them personally. But still, 1 to 3% of your funds might disappear into that chargeback land. Again, you're probably raising a whole lot more than at least Indiegogo and possibly Seed&Spark. So the numbers kind of balance out, but you gotta kind of factor that in. The final thing that I'm not a huge fan of is that trending is based almost exclusively on money raised and how fast you raise it. So for a small DIY guerrilla film campaign, it's easy to get lost in the crowd, both in terms of trending or getting into newsletters. My clients don't have a huge problem with this because I can reach out to, I have a special relationship with them, so I can sprinkle a little bit of guru magic there. But even so, I can only do that once the campaign has reached some certain threshold, because before that, there's just not enough oomph behind it for this big, massive company to really put any weight behind it, give it a staff pick, or what they call it projects we love now, and all that kind of stuff, right? So that can be a challenge, whereas on the other platforms you can really sort of control your trending pretty easily, especially on Indiegogo. Actually, it's one of the big pros for Indiegogo for me is the ability to control your where you're trending. So those are the pros and cons of Kickstarter. I tend to generally recommend Kickstarter for projects like 30 to 40K or above, especially if it's genre in that space. I've had plenty of projects on my favorite Seed&Spark in that range, but Kickstarter tends to be this kind of cozy, safe place. You're sacrificing a lot of the cool special stuff that's in the other platforms, but you're getting sort of the stalwart brand, sort of safe choice of crowdfunding. Cool. So I hope this helps. Stay tuned for the next few days where I go through the other platforms and break those down for you so that by the end, hopefully you can make an informed choice on which platform is the best for your campaign. All right. Peace. We'll talk soon.